And we'll start with an announcement from Dr. Harris.
Hey, that's me. I still see a few of you in there that have not renamed. So just if you have a moment, please just go in and rename yourself on those three little dots on the top right with senator and then your last name or chair. That's primarily what we're looking for so we can have ease of voting. I'm going to read from it because I'm trying to be conscious of time. So I just want to say to everyone, thanks for coming today. And I want to remind everyone that you should be listening carefully to all sides of the arguments today. When it's time to vote, I also want you to do so based on the available information presented. You have been elected to do what is best for the organization and for your fellow students. And I want each and every one of you who are able to vote to feel comfortable voting how you feel and to do so without any worry of retaliation or repercussions. In addition, I would like to remind you that you should cast a vote at the end of this discussion. Abstentions should only occur if you truly have a direct conflict of interest in the vote at hand and not because you don't feel comfortable casting a vote either way. And Farine is going to go over that a bit before the times come closer. So I will finish by saying thanks in advance for a good civil discussion and for moving this to a resolution either way at the end of this meeting. Thank you, Farine. Excuse me, Speaker Khan.
That's okay. Thank you. So again, the first thing on the agenda is number CSV 2020F002, which is the first, this was vetoed. Again, I want to emphasize, like I did in the email, we're going to style this debate style. So President John Ray and Vice President Piera will be given 3 minutes each for their opening statements, and then we will transition to the authors of the legislation. Senator Cohen-Odiaga and Senator Roberson will be given 3 minutes each to also give their opening statements, and then I will open the floor up to debate. Senators this is strictly for senators first. I'm going to prioritize senators, and then again, please keep it respectful, no crossfire. I'm going to emphasize that I have no problem kicking anybody out of the Zoom call if need be. So keep it polite, and if we're gonna move to a vote, again, like Dr. Harris said, please do not abstain unless you have like a conflict of interest, or there should be a valid reason. There shouldn't be a reason to abstain just because you don't feel comfortable voting or anything like that. Is that clear to everybody? Great, we'll get started. I will turn it over to President Javier.
Good afternoon, everyone. Vice President Pereira and I just wanted to take this time to explain our reasonings and our rationale why we decided to veto the recent legislations. So for the first legislation, we believe that it creates an additional barrier for students outside of the undergraduate student government to be involved at a capacity that is different from other positions. Cabinet members do not have voting power. They cannot present legislation. They do not engage in Robert's rules, and they do not engage in parliamentary procedures. They are simply members of the executive branch appointed by the president and vice president to act as proxies in the event that they are not able to sit in a council, committee, or meeting. Their role is to support the operation of the executive branch in tasks voicing students' needs and concerns in administrative conversations. The language used in this legislation indicates that proper, adequate, and proficient representation of students is based on performance of a written exam, rather than personal experiences, perspectives, and lenses. Regardless if it is an open book or open notes exam, there are students who already struggle with testing anxiety in their academic classes. Why must this be another barrier for students to face just to be involved and support the community? As stakeholders in the executive branch and senators who have the responsibility in making legislations and voting power, we understand that the need for proficiency exams in that capacity. But it should be the responsibility of the president and vice president who were elected and trusted by the majority of the voting student body to educate cabinet members the different functions of USG and without being tested on. There should be grace and openness to learn about the organization through their work and interactions with the different branches. I'll pass it to Vice President Pereira as well.
Thank you, President Javier. So on this legislation about the proficiency exam, as we've looked at our current cabinet members who have been working for the past 4+ weeks, taking hours out of their week to meet with administration or legislators within the university, administrators, community members, we see that what they've done is far beyond what they could be tested on a proficiency exam. And with this legislation, you're also acknowledging that these members who have currently been working as our cabinet, in order for them to adequately represent the student body, everything that they have done so far, all the meetings that they've done, their personal experiences as a student really only matter and qualify if you're going through a proficiency exam of a 60+ question exam that is completely not towards what they're doing as a cabinet member. As President Javier had mentioned, cabinet members have no power except for during a GA speaking about what they've been doing and reporting on what they've been doing. They meet with administrators and students, but that is about it. And they meet with us as the executive cabinet. And to make sure, to tell them that they need to take a proficiency exam is really dumbing down and kind of getting rid of everything that they have done so far and that they bring to the table prior to taking that exam. John Ray, I'll pass it back to you.
That's all from our end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So again, I'm also timing this, by the way, just because I want to keep in time, and the majority of time that I want to spend on this each legislation is not an hour. So I will transition it now to Senator Cohen Odiaga. You have 3 minutes to speak, and then again, we will open it up to senators, and you all will have 1 minute to speak, and then President and Vice President will have 1 minute to respond to each.
I'm actually going to kick it to Senator Roberson, who's going to talk about this one. I'm going to take the lead on talking about the other one.
Sorry. Okay, perfect. Senator Roberson, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mr. President and Madam Vice President, for your perspectives. So I just wanted to, I guess, point out a key email that was sent out by the Justice during the week, and it lays out how the exam process works. And basically, this email was sent out on the 12th with the exam details, and the exam is due on October the 26th. That gives people 14 days to do it. So there's not much to worry about anxiety or anything of this nature. Also, the Justice has made clear that if anyone has questions or if anyone needs more time, they can reach out to the Justice for such accommodations. I will also note that this does not create a barrier, as we're not trying to modify the ways in which the president chooses these members. The president may choose whomever they feel they would like to choose. We're not mingling with that process. What we are doing is trying to ensure equitable procedures. And if senators, if the legislative and the judicial and the president and vice president have to take said exams, we feel it important that, cabinet members should have to take these exams as well. There's nothing unreasonable about that expectation, and we should not have a problem with that. I understand there seems to be a concern about tests in general. And, if that is the concern, then I think there needs to be some executive action or legislative action to get rid of tests for everyone. But until then, the only reasonable and equitable effort and step to take would be to implement this requirement for cabinet members. Also noted in that email was that the test could be retaken. So, if a person doesn't have to worry about, hey, if I fail, I'm getting kicked off USG. This in no way creates a barrier for people to get involved with USG, and it's helping folks to understand how USG operates. I mean, this is a benefit for them. Now, while the president has laid out that they will give instruction to cabinet members and let them understand how the processes work, we would like to have this in a formal setting to make sure that, hey, we've informed everyone affiliated with USG about our processes and how we operate. This in many ways benefits them greatly, and that's basically the gist of my concern here.
Thank you, Senator Roberson. So now we will open it up.
May I jump in, Speaker Khan?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Senator Roberson, for explaining all this. I would like to add just briefly, first of all, that I think the part of the concern might actually be in the wording. I think we might want to look at renaming it from exam to practice, because really I've taken the proficiency exam twice at this point for both of my terms as USG, and it doesn't feel like an exam. It's more of a treasure hunt. You're going through the bylaws and finding the answers to these questions. I mean, you can Command F like 70% of it and find the answers. It's not, it's not an exam in the traditional sense. It's just practice getting involved in the bylaws. It's like learning a new language. The bylaws of the undergraduate student government are kind of like a language you have to learn. And so calling it an exam does provoke a lot of anxiety. Let's change the word. The Chief Justice has the right to alter the text of the bylaws if it doesn't change the substance. Let's come up with a new word instead of exam. That'll reduce so much anxiety if we just stop calling it an exam, but focus on the substance of what it is. It is practice using the bylaws. And I'd like to say that I have learning disabilities too. I have very severe testing anxiety. I understand we need to alleviate that anxiety as much as possible, but let's do it in a way that still solves the issue of wanting everyone to be on the same page and understand the process of how this works. Let's move away from the language of exam and talk about it as a practice. But that's nothing to do with this bill. That's not the problem that this bill is trying to solve. That's another conversation, and I would love to have a conversation on how we can reduce anxiety, but that doesn't mean that this bill shouldn't pass. I yield my time.
Thank you. Again, yeah, that would be a completely different legislation. So now I'm going to open the floor up to debate for two senators. Please raise your hand if you want to speak, and I'm just going to go in the order I saw the hands. Okay, wow. Also, if you're not speaking, please mute yourself. And again, you have 1 minute each to speak. So I will be timing you, and I'm sorry if I interrupt you, but we just got to keep moving. Okay, Senator Jones, I saw your hand first.
Hi. So last year, I was the Chief Justice, and so it was my role to grade those bylaw exams. I administered the test. It was my job to facilitate that. And last year, I made it very clear that if anyone had any questions, they could come to me. And the only person that saw the grades that you got on that bylaw exam was me. I was the only one that graded them. John, our current Chief Justice, might have looked at them, but these scores do not leave the Justice Branch's Google Drive. You only know your score if you didn't get enough questions right. And so then I reached out to you, and I was willing to work with you one-on-one to make sure that you understand every single question that you got wrong. This bylaw exam, when I was grading it, I never judged anyone on their ability to be a senator based on the score that they got on that exam. And so I feel like it's incorrect to say that I agree with Senator Cohen Odiaga in the fact that we should rename the bylaw exam from being exam to more of a worksheet, because that's essentially what it is. You're just familiarizing yourself. So thank you.
So I think we should take it paragraph by paragraph. I think
Wait,
that's
sorry, Senator Driscoll.
like the easiest way.
Thank you. That's time, Senator Jones. Thank you. Is that okay? Cool. Senator Sturgeon, I saw your hand next.
I have a question for President Javier and Vice President Pereira. So just to be clear, when you said, sir, that the cabinet members are meant to be proxies for the president, vice president?
They can serve as proxies for different councils, committees, and meetings. Yeah.
Yeah, then that leads into my question. If they are meant to serve as proxies for the president and vice president, why should they not be held to the same standards of excellence that the president and vice president are by taking the exam?
I understand that question, Senator Sturgeon. And again, I think the capacity that as stakeholders that the positions that the president and vice president hold within the executive branch is held to that higher standard. And I think, I understand that, and I agree that it should be held to that, but I also want to meet students where they are at, that we should also meet students where they are at in terms of the type of responsibilities that they also want to uphold in specifically the different communities that they would like to enter and specific conversations that they would like to be a part of and represent for students. I'll pass it to Vice President Pereira as well to speak on this too.
Thank you, President. Our cabinet members, again, have no legislative power. I technically have no legislative power. The president does within General Assemblies with vetoing by themselves. So basically, as I see a cabinet member, I see them as an extension of the vice presidential role. Now, our cabinet members are held to standards within our own documentation. Colleagues, if you would definitely like to see those contracts that we had written up and created and really learn about our interview process, we would be more than happy to share those documents, speak about that, share that to whoever fills in our roles next year. But within that, we actually had very high standards for our cabinet members. There were specific criteria and things for them in their position to represent the student body in the different positions that they were in, such as a commuter student had to be a commuter, a residential student had to be a resident, athletics and recreation officer had to be involved in that in some way. So beyond the General Assembly, our cabinet members are held to those high standards.
Okay, and that's time. Senator Sturgeon, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much, both of you.
We'll move on to Senator Ruzick. Again, 1 minute to speak and 1 minute for responses. So, okay. I'm gonna move on to another hand. Senator, are you ready to speak, Senator Ruzick? Okay, perfect. You're muted.
There we go. There we go. Little trouble. All right. So first and foremost, thank you to President and Vice President. You know, they were given a mandate to use their, President Javier was given a mandate by the voters to use their power with veto if necessary. But, you know, I also encourage other senators to override the veto, as we were given a similar mandate to override a veto when we deem it necessary. I just have four problems with the veto. One is that, you know, we need to hold cabinet members to a little bit of a higher standard, whether that is through the confirmation process or a proficiency exam. And two, you know, if senators have testing anxiety, it's a 2-week exam and they can work individually with members of the judicial branch. So I think that's a good answer to that point. And number three is the bylaws outline the role for cabinet members. And I think that that would be very helpful for cabinet members. My fourth and final point is that the only way that we know that members of the cabinet are familiar with the bylaws is if they have taken an exam. I encourage all of my senators to, once again, stick together and to override this veto. Thank you.
That's time. Thank you. I am going to move on to Senator Thelwell. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
It is Speaker Khan.
Okay, go ahead.
Actually, my question was more or less what Senator Sturgeon was saying. So, I mean, he pretty much answered it, but yeah, I just basically feel like, you know, if these cabinet members are proxies, then they should be held to the, you know, at least some sort of the same standard because they do have an important position.
Thank you, Senator Thalwell. We'll move on to Chair Bates.
Sorry, I lost my mouse for a second. I think overall this just creates an equal. I mean, it is a barrier, but there's just barriers to get to certain positions in life and in student government in general. So it just kind of creates a more equal barrier for everybody by requiring all members of student government to take an exam. You know, whether or not we want changes to that exam in the title or the types of questioning, like that's all a separate issue, and it's certainly something we can address later on. But the student, I mean, the proficiency exam, you know, it just forces people to understand the bylaws. It's one of the reasons I feel like I know the bylaws so well is because I had to take that proficiency exam. So I think it's honestly, I know it's kind of a drag. It's not the most fun thing to do in the world, but I think it's really valuable, and I think it's important for everybody to take, not just senators. That's all. I was going to move to vote, but I see a couple of people with their hands raised, so I'm going to wait on that. But I encourage people to move to vote because I feel like we're on the same page. So whenever you guys are ready.
That's time. Thank you, Chair Bates. I'm going to move on to Senator Smith.
Hi. Thank you. I just have thank you, President Javier and Vice President Pereira for stating your opinion on this bill and your perspective on why you vetoed it. I agree with pretty much everything that's just been said. First off, like I think the value of this proficiency exam, it serves as a standard for every member of USG, because currently every member of USG has had to take that exam other than these cabinet members, meaning that they're held to a different standard than everyone else, which I personally do not think is fair. It also serves as a great form of education along the bylaws. Like it's the only reason I personally know the bylaws. Also, I think it shows a level of commitment once you take this exam, because it does take some time, and I'd like any member of USG to be willing to put in some time. I know, like I've taken it, we all have taken it, and it's not difficult to do. Again, as Senator Cody Noriega pointed out, it's all looking up the stuff in the bylaws, but it is just work that you're putting in to find it. All right, thank you.
And that's fine. Thank you, Senator Smith. Vice President Pierre, is yours a response to something or an answer to a question?
It was a response to Jake a while ago. If you want me to say that.
Yeah, go ahead. Just 1 minute, please.
I'll make it quick, yeah. So I think the avenue of what Jake said about Senator Bates, Chair Bates, said about having this be a barrier, I think that's an extreme issue with students at UMass Boston, as they're already facing barriers within their own organizations or within their classes and within the outside world that they step into. And our role and our job that we wanted to take on with these cabinet members was to eliminate and try to get students involved in USG with as least barriers as possible to get the most student voices heard and the most student bodies represented on our cabinet.
Thank you, Vice President Pierre. Chair Velasquez.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say that we have no doubt that President Javier and Vice President Pereira do have some good judgment on their election and selection of cabinet members, but I want to address the situation that this bill will in no way raise some barriers for people to join USG. And this doesn't also prevent members from having power in having their positions be fulfilled. But what this bill will do is it will work on creating long and lasting relationships of transparency within USG branches. This bill was not meant to control the amount of power that the current executive branch has right now, but it was built for the future. We wrote this bill not for this administration, but the ones that are going to come in the future. Also, I wanted to address that this will make us work as a team as USG. And lastly, I want to address that senators, you have the ability to remove, and this is something that we added to our legislation, you have the ability to remove official, non-judicial members of USG. So if we have that power, why don't we have the power to just make them take the proficiency exam, because that will make us be on the same page on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Cohen-Odiaga.
Two things. One, I should also make it clear that this bill is not retroactive. It does not apply to anyone currently in the executive cabinet. So President Javier, we're trusting your judgment here completely. We are not asking anyone in your current cabinet to take the exam retroactively. Also, I move that we vote.
Okay, so there's
Second.
Okay.
All right, so those in favor of moving to a vote, please raise your hands on the participants tab. And again, senators are voting, and I'm going to wait for Chief Justice Moylan and Justice Klepech to confirm if it's a majority. That looks like a majority. Yep, that's a majority. Okay, so those in favor of, what was the exact wording you used, Senator Cohen-Odiaga? You weren't specific about.
I just said vote. Can we vote?
Okay, so those in favor of, I assume that's the veto. I assume.
Yeah, I move that we vote to override President Javier's veto of, I cannot remember the. We've been calling it 002 in CCA, so I move that we vote to override President Javier's veto of 002.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. So those in favor of overriding the veto on. Yes.
Sorry. Let's have everybody lower their hands again. Remember, we got to have a clean vote here. Sorry. So we just want to make sure, this requires a 2/3 majority. We are just double checking. We believe we have 28 voting senators on here, which include chairs, but does not include you. So I just want to confirm one more time with Chief Justice Moylan. So just give us a moment. Don't want error here. Not easy on Zoom. Correct. Okay, we do have 28. Chief Justice, you confirm that?
Yeah, it looks like 28.
Okay, so
2/3 to override that, which I believe is
19 to pass, Dr. Harris.
Thank you, math majors. I'm not.
I'm not a math major. I just have a calculator on my computer.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm sorry about that. Those in favor of overriding the veto on number CSB 2020-002, please raise your hands.
Please keep them raised so we can get the count. Only senators and chairs.
Okay, I am getting a majority. Can Chief Justice, can you confirm? Okay. Please lower your hands now.
I'm sorry, I only got 25 votes, so it does.
She's not finished yet.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Those opposed in not overriding the veto CSB 2020-F002, please raise your hands. Okay, lower your hands, please. Any abstentions? Going once, going twice. Okay, I calculated a
Me,
majority.
sorry.
Sorry?
Abstain.
That's your 28.
All right, everyone looks like they voted. It does pass by a very large majority. I believe it was, hold on, I have to check again, but it was
25.
definitely over the 19. I'll
25.
get you the exact count when I do the voting record.
Okay, so that is overridden. That, again, this is not retroactive, but it will go into effect for the future. Okay, now I'm going to transition on the second legislation, number CSB 2020F004. Again, bring it if you have it in the emails and refer to the agenda. Same thing, 3 minutes each, President Javier, Vice President Piera, and 3 minutes each, Senator Roberson, Senator Cohen-Noriega. 1 minute went for the debate. Also, I don't want this to take as long as the first one did, so please keep it short because we do have another thing that we tabled on the agenda that I want to get to. So I will pass it over to President.
Yeah. So similarly with the first legislation, the second legislation also creates an additional barrier as well as an instituted structure of exclusion for students outside of the undergraduate student government to become involved. The president and vice president have been elected by majority voting student population, and one of the prescribed responsibilities in the bylaws that the president and the vice president are responsible is appointing their cabinet members, because these appointed officials will be working closely with the president and vice president within the executive branch. The president and vice president's responsibility to facilitate, and it is the responsibility of the president and vice president to facilitate an approval process for cabinet members to ensure that the best representation of students in in administrative conversations before appointing. Their judgment is trusted by the majority voting student body. And we personally have conducted interviews with our cabinet members before appointing them. And in these conversations, members have shared personal experiences that they would not be comfortable sharing in a larger setting. We believe that these personal experiences are critical to representing students because it's reflective of the UMass Boston student experience. Senator approval creates a barrier in this process and disrespects a student's comfortability in sharing their experiences by forcing them to be presented in front of 30+ people, being questioned their character and qualifications of their proficiency, adequacy, and proper representation for the student body. This discourages potential students from getting involved within the undergraduate student government. There is already an approval process with appointing justices. The responsibility of a justice is entirely different from a cabinet member, and the commitment of a justice is 2 years and directly oversees the governing documents of the USG. Cabinet members only serve under the administration they were appointed under, and it's usually a year. And the responsibilities are external from the undergraduate student government and do not directly impact its functions. I just want to emphasize that proficient, adequate, and proper representation of students does not come from the performance of an exam or a 2/3 majority vote from a body that could enter office by a single vote from themselves, but rather the student experience on the individuals that they carry with them. I'll pass it to Vice President Pereira.
Thank you, President Javier. I would just like to, with this particular legislation, I would like to draw attention to senator special elections. Now, acknowledging special elections, and welcome to everyone that's new here, I would also like to point out that special elections are not voted in by 2/3 of the Senate vote. If we're looking at the idea of checks and balances between the judicial, legislative, and executive branches, questioning why it wouldn't make sense to do a 2/3 vote by the judicial or the executive on special election senators. Also drawing to that point is that if special election senators are not voted in by 2/3 of the Senate, who are again elected by the student body, why is the executive cabinet, who is already appointed by the executive members as the vice president and president who were voted in by the student body, why do those members have to be approved by 2/3 of the Senate when the special election senators do not? And I would just also include that through general elections, the vice president and president, who is often a contested position, are voted in by student leaders. Now, one day I would love to see contested senator seats, but unfortunately that's not how it was this past year. And if there's a choice between 2 or 3 or however many different candidates for the vice president and president role, and one member, one campaign ticket is chosen, it's shown that they're selected by the student body and that the student body is confident that they will voice their concerns and make the right decisions for the student body. So why would they not trust that the president and vice president have the best judgment as the voice of the student body to get those extra members of the executive cabinet to help be the hands and feet of the student body?
Thank you, Vice President Pereira. Senator Cohen-Nodiaga, I believe you wanted to speak first on this.
All right, here goes nothing. I will say this was not inspired at all by me spending too much time on TikTok. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the floor. I only have 3 minutes, so let's break down 004. Did you know that cabinet officials are all subject to removal? That is a pain, which we can avoid if they first get Senate approval. And besides which, in USG, this process isn't new. Supreme Court justices get confirmed, so why not the cabinet too? Furthermore, my colleagues, I just want to make it clear that this bill is about far more than this president or this year. I admit it may have been inspired by recent events, but look, this president did nothing wrong. Everything was by the book, and therein lies a problem about which I must be outspoken, for a system that allows this is fundamentally broken. I don't think it's a radical or controversial stance that a government needs transparency across every single branch. Democratic checks and balances are a measure of prevention against a future president with dishonorable intentions. Our system has a loophole just waiting to be exploited. It's our duty to our constituents to do all we can to avoid it. Look, ever since I got elected, it's been my goal to break the norm of institutional inertia to institutional reform. So this veto is a deterrent, but I take it as a sign that we need this legislation. Madam Speaker, I yield my time.
Can I comment on it, or Senator Robertson, you want to?
Yes, I was just going to I guess provide my spill on this bill. Basically, I guess I just want to be well. Thanks again, Mr. President and Madam Vice President, for your words on this bill. But I wanted to be straightforward and say that I do think that this is an inefficient way to operate as a team, especially since the Senate had, by a near unanimous vote, passed this in our last meeting. And now we have to spend an entire meeting to go back and do what is probably about to be another near unanimous vote to pass a bill we had already decided something on. I keep hearing in the president and vice president's speeches that we don't trust their judgment, but here we are. We have all of these senators that are very concerned with the student body, and we have read over things, including the authors that have thought about the different components of this bill. We have thought it all through, and we have put forth something that we believe to be equitable. We believe it to be fair. We believe it to be reasonable. But our judgment was undermined. It was undermined when the president and vice president decided to veto this bill, and veto it without ever approaching the authors and asking for maybe clarification, because I think it is clear that only the president and vice president had a problem with this. So I think at that point, before a veto and causing a waste of time, the author should have been approached and asked for clarification before taking such action. And I kept hearing that, that the president and vice president got more votes or was contested elections. And I just don't understand how that matters. The way that our government operates is a democracy, and we're supposed to have checks and balances. We're supposed to work as a unit, as a team. None of us trump the other. And this is what, this is about. All of this is about teamwork. All this about equitable practices. All of this is about us and the student body. This is not a us versus you or vice versa. And I will say last but not least, I'm not sure how the cabinet will feel disrespected by a confirmation. I'm really lost on that one. The justices are confirmed, and yes, they have a different responsibility, but I don't see the disrespect here. It's just not applicable. I don't understand that. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Senator Roberson.
Speaker Khan, I'd like to make a motion to move to a vote.
Is there a second? There is a second. Okay. Well, there's a motion on the floor, so you have to vote on the motion. Please lower your hands if you are wanting to speak. Please lower your hands because we have to vote on the motion on the floor.
I'm sorry, Speaker Khan, this is just for the motion to vote, not
Yeah.
the actual legislation, correct?
Okay. Not the actual one. Because we'd have to vote, we have to vote on moving to a vote, if that makes sense. Those in favor of moving to a vote, please raise your hands. Again, I believe 19 is the majority, so I will calculate this, and if Chief Justice Jessica Klepech could also tell me that.
Sorry, 19 is the 2/3. The majority would just be, if there's 20, it would just be 14.
Okay.
It'd actually be 15, 50% plus 1. Sorry.
Okay. How many did you get, Chief Justice?
For the motion to vote,
Mm-hmm.
it looks like 15, yeah.
Okay. Please lower your hands. Those opposed to moving to a vote, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands.
Oh, 6. Never mind.
And then any abstentions? Okay, great. I calculated that that's a majority. John, did you get that too?
Yeah, it was 5, or sorry, it was 6 in the minority who wanted to keep talking about it.
Okay. Okay, so the motion on the floor is to move to a vote, and that was approved. So I assume whoever did the motion, I assume it's to override the veto, right? Just confirming.
Yes. A motion to override the veto of SB, I believe it's 004.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Those in favor of overriding the veto on number CSB 2020 F004, please raise your hands. John, did you get that?
I believe so. Hold on.
Please lower your
My bad.
hands. Oh.
Oh, nope, there's one more. So my bad. There was one more, but that's all right.
So John, you got everybody for the
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Those opposed in overriding the veto, number CSE 2020 F004.
All right, I believe I got all of them.
Please lower your hands. Any abstentions?
Abstain. Abstain.
All right, I got that. Thank you very much.
Okay, so this is overridden. The veto was overridden, and again, this is not retroactive, so this will apply to the future. Okay, moving on to the agenda, Dorchester Bay City Thoughts. We're done with everything. Perfect timing as well. I will move this over. I believe President Javier and Vice President Pierre wanted to speak on this. And again, I also want to note that there's a town hall tomorrow that if you're a senator, you should probably come to. I believe, I'll just pass it over to President Javier.
I'll throw it to Vice President Pereira. She wanted to speak on this.
Thank you. So moving on from those legislations, no matter what happened, I'm going to be honest and blunt with what I say. There have been things happening this past summer and fall that are lethal and are hurting our students. The Black Lives Matter movement of 2020, the COVID pandemic, the learning remotely, students uproaring rightfully so at a racist student entering our campus, a new chancellor, a lack of graduation for the class of 2020, what looks like a mostly remote year for the class of 2020, clubs, organizations transitioning to fully online, the release of the Bayside development project called Dorchester Bay City, which I will touch more on, and the developing concerns of mental health that students have had and have been having an issue with since the spring and continuing to today. The response, unfortunately, from our USG was to create three legislations, two of which we've seen, regarding internal affairs within USG. And as much as I respect that and thank you for writing those legislations, and they were great and very well put out, unfortunately, that is not representing and reflecting and voicing for our student body. And the things that are happening right now, they might seem very far off, but they're—
Point of order, this has nothing to do with the agenda item.
No. This is Dorchester Bay City Thoughts.
Yes, I'll be getting to that, don't worry. This is serious, and the students are hurting and suffering, and we're losing students. And this time, it's very pressing for the Dorchester Bay City. I know it might not seem like right now is going to be, we're not on campus and it's not affecting us right now, but it will be now, it will be years from now, and it will be 10 years, 15 years from now. As we attended the Dorchester Bay City community panel, the explanations that they gave were not reflective of our community and were not reflective of our student body and our urban mission. And unfortunately, they had kind of laid out a plan of what things we're going to do over the next 10 to 15 years, traffic patterns, how they wanted to increase the traffic at JFK UMass, how they wanted to implement housing, how buildings were going to be created for financial and other opportunities for non-local businesses and not focused on students. And the reason I brought this up is because it's very important for us right now, for all of you in USG, to start voicing on this, advocating, telling your fellow students about this. Because even though right now it doesn't seem as pressing as a lot of the other things going on and that have been going on, it is very pressing. And I encourage you all to attend the public listening sessions. There will be one on October 19th, which hopefully we'll send out the link either in an email or you'll see it on the Instagram page. But it's very important for us to be there as students and not only voice for students, but for the community members. Tomorrow we'll be having a town hall, which President Javier and myself will be leading, and we would love to see y'all there. And if you cannot attend, please tell someone to go and attend. Not only tell them to go to that, but also to the listening session. We want to take what's said in this town hall forward, but if students can be there at the listening session with the 25-member committee who is in charge of this project, it's much more impactful there. So I would really just encourage all of you to be very involved with this program, because it's very concerning for our community and very concerning for the gentrification of the peninsula and Columbia Point as we know it, as well as our commuter students who will be ultimately losing parking spaces. The Bayside lot will be gone, and there will be a one-level lot that will be created, but that will only have 300 parking spaces as rendered now. And that does not compare to the 1,300 plus parking space of Bayside. So it's not only for our low-income minority students, for our community members, and for our commuter students. It's also for the Dorchester neighborhood. So I would just suggest and recommend for all of you to attend these listening sessions, keep your ears out, email the Chancellor and Matthew Felton, and just really advocate and push for this, because honestly, coming from John Ray and myself, this is our last year. We will still be around, but ultimately it'll be up to everyone who will be here next year, the year after, and for generations on. This will definitely, the trajectory of this project will affect how UMass Boston will run when it's created. It's a very intense gentrifying project that I encourage you all to really read up on. I'll send a link about the proposal and everything about it. President Javier.
Thank you, Vice President Pereira. I echo and emphasize all the words that Vice President Pereira had said. I also encourage senators to look forward in the legislations that they're making that benefit the student body, whether it's mental health, the Bayside developments, the Black Lives Matter movement, racial justice. There are a lot of things that are going on at this university that they really need our support right now. And so that's through the work that you do, not only in the legislations, but also the conversations that you're making. And so Jaylee and I have taken some efforts in these past couple of weeks, connecting with different campus partners just to understand more about the history of UMass Boston and the future of it. And feel free to reach out to us offline to just gain some more understanding and perspective of it. Again, we encourage you all to not only attend the town hall tomorrow to voice your concerns, but also the listening sessions that are facilitated by the Boston Planning Development Agency. We're doing our best to kind of create a collective organization, collective movement to kind of create leverage and influence this decision-making process. And we need all hands on deck if we want to try and support the community for generations in the long run. We encourage, in addition to that, we're working with one of our cabinet members, both of our cabinet members actually, Officer Killian, as well as Officer Zabel, as they've been working closely with the Boston Intercollegiate Government in spearheading this issue to city officials and city councils and addressing it in that capacity. If you'd like to work with them, feel free to reach out to them as well. But yes, thank you.
I'll just add, I'll be sending in the chat also the original Columbia Point master plan that was released June 2011. So definitely take a look at that and understand how that has changed as what was originally told to students of what Dorchester Bay City, which is now named that, would look like. It's very different. So definitely take a look at that. And I just want to emphasize to really begin to look at the student body and really be listening to them. A lot of students are hurting, and definitely be someone that they can speak to, and definitely bring those concerns to GA as well and up with administrators. And our cabinet members would love to work with all of you or any of you. if you would like to kind of focus in on one part of what's been going on.
Thank you, President Javier and Vice President Pereira. Okay, I just want to emphasize here, let's just take a breath and everything. We're going to refocus on what's specifically on the agenda, which is Dorchester Bay City Thoughts. And again, the work you do, senators, does not go unnoticed. We're going to move on from this, and we're going to keep doing the work that you do, whether it be internally or externally. And the hands I raised, I'm going to ask, please, that you keep them based on the discussion at hand, which is the Dorchester Bay City Thoughts, and definitely attend the student town hall. We have 5 minutes left. I understand if you cannot stay over time, but I anticipate this going over the time. And again, let's just refocus. Remember to be polite and conscious, and also the work that you do, senators, does not go unnoticed. Senator Roberson, your hand is first on my list.
Yes, thank you, Speaker Khan. You've made some of my comments. I have to limit them and chop them off, so I'll do my best to stick to the Dorchester conversation. But what I will emphasize in including this Dorchester conversation is that intersectionality when approaching injustice is extremely important. So you cannot expect everyone to take your route when fighting injustice. As an Africana Studies major, human rights minor, philosophy and law minor, I really, really inquire into injustice and how it affects us all. And there's more than one way to face it. So yes, let's take on this Dorchester conversation in the proper ways as advocated by the president and vice president, but don't be discouraged to take other routes such as actions through USG.
Thank you, Senator Roberson. Senator DePina.
Yeah, so with the Bayside problem, I've been fighting for this before they even made the deadline of how long they're going to plan it. So I think it's a bad idea. I've been fighting with the union members for a long time before it came to play right now. So I think the community, the people that lives around there is going to be affected, and also us, the low-income students, because it's just a bad idea. So I really want to put my hands on this, and I would like to be at the table because, no, I'm not going for it. Okay?
Thank you, Senator DePina. Senator Custers, correct me.
Yeah, Custos. Sorry, it's
Say it again.
Custos.
Custos. Okay, is that right?
Yeah, relative. It's okay. So what I just wanted to touch base on is that I really like what President Javier said about leverage and us leveraging our position on the project and how it actually affects UMass, because in the event that it does get put through and it passes all of these things through the committees, and then the construction happens, and then in 15 years it's actually going to be there. I think it's our job to really leverage what our say is and leverage what we can get out of it, especially when it comes to opportunities for the students and what kind of solutions we can come up with in terms of alternative parking. For example, I'm looking at the Google Earth right now, and there are a few opportunities for us to divert parking on campus. So I think that if it comes to the point of where we know it's going to get built, I think we should start actually trying to leverage what UMass Boston's relationship with the project will be, and economically as well, how we can benefit the most, especially when it comes to how we look at our competitiveness within the Boston area as a university. So we know that Boston and MIT pretty much have the whole Cambridge internship market as a whole, and as well as in downtown Boston. But if this gets built, we could actually have a major opportunity to harvest some of that internship power when it comes to giving opportunities back to the students in every industry that moves into the project. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I'm gonna get your name, Kusters. I think we'll get there. Senator Sturgeon, go ahead.
I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you to President Javier and Vice President Ferreira for setting up this town hall and giving us this opportunity to talk to people about the Dorchester Bay City project. I think it's a great idea. I think that it's really important, like you said, to get students to have their voices heard. And I also hope, personally, I won't be able to go because I have a prior obligation, but I hope that there is some way for us to, if not watch the town hall after, a way to review it after to see what came of it, so that we know what our constituents think about it moving forward as well.
Thank you, Senator Sturgeon. Senator Cohen-Noriega.
Yeah, thank you. And so obviously I cannot speak on behalf of, I can't speak on behalf of CCA or of Chair Lobola Velasquez, but I know that as CCA, our mandate as a committee is to be the lead on projects like this and looking into how students feel about these issues. So I can't speak on behalf of the chair, so I can't, I can't say anything about like what happens, in the CCA meetings themselves. But I would love to hear more from the president and vice president just personally that I can bring to my committee on, obviously you have been studying this issue for longer than we have here. You've been on this for a while. So please, if there's anything that you would like us to push through CCA as far as events, actions, legislations, polling, we do a lot of polling in CCA. So please, if there's anything you would like us as CCA to chase on this topic, I want to work with you. I know that you're only here for a year and I want to make the most of that. So please, by all means, you have my email, reach out to me and let's work on this together. And I'm happy to talk with you about how CCA can be involved on that as well, since I was on there 2 years in a row.
Thank you, Senator Cohen-Noriega. I'm gonna, the hands I see so far, I'm gonna call on them and then I'm gonna adjourn the meeting, hopefully. But moving on to open forum. But if you need to leave, you can totally leave, that's okay. It's 4 o'clock, please stay on if you can. But we'll move on to Senator Riyad.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay? Okay, so one thing I wanted to point out was everybody made really good points. I think for me, one of the first things I noticed coming into the university was the construction of the dorms. And I think from the moment the dorms were constructed, the university administration had their priorities or had a lot of money and a lot of they were paying attention to the dorms, and that's all good. But I think from that moment, I think as a commuter student, I don't have a point of reference because I came as a commuter student the same year that the dorms were built, but I can assume that a lot of the UMass Boston's appeal, especially as somebody who's from the suburbs of Boston, is the commuter experience and the commuter vibe. And I think that from the moment that the dorms were built, that was an automatic inclination that a lot of resources are going there. So right now, the university and the city of Boston kind of are looking at UMass Boston as, okay, you have Peninsula, you have Harbor Point, and you have the dorms. So at this point, and you also have the T. So I take the T. So parking, personally, when the whole situation with the parking rates going up, I didn't have a vested interest to be involved in that discussion because I was a commuter student taking the T. So from when we talk about Bayside being shrunk drastically and to the point that it's probably not going to exist soon, I think that showing students that they have a vested interest in keeping UMass Boston at least a majority commuter student, which keeps it rooted in Boston and not sort of, we want it to be international as well as Boston, but if we're going to be having it as a completely dorming student, then you're just really it's going to hurt low-income students who can't afford dorming, who can't afford apartments. So if we sort of spin it in that way, I think that most students are going to be like, okay, so what? So what? Bayside is gone. By the time that they renovate it, UMass Boston's going to be completely a different new identity. But if you look at it in the way like, okay, UMass Boston is the only, the best state college in all of Boston. If you're going to make it into a dorming student, or if you're going to make it a university that is solely made for people to live on campus, you're completely eradicating any sort of assistant or university for low-income students in Boston.
Thank you, Senator Riyad. Senator Gervais?
Thank you. First, I just want to say that I agree with everything that I heard, but I do have a question for Vice President Pereira. I hear the BPDA's name thrown out there a ton, as if they're an association that would be willing to help us. Have you had conversations with the BPDA, and what leverage do you think we have? The BPDA's board members are appointed by the governor, the mayor, and the city council has zero oversight over them. They approve projects regardless of what people in the city have to say, regardless of what the communities actually believe. They've bolstered structural inequality over and over and over again. And this may be a fight worth taking on, but it's not a fight worth taking on with the BPDA.
Thank you,
Gervais. Did you want to respond to that, Vice President?
Yes, I was just going to respond really quickly. So I have had a little conversation with them, and I think a senator left that had brought up the internship point. I'd actually asked what the relationship between UMass Boston students and this new development would be, and they gave they didn't really answer my question, and just my interactions with conversation with them is very not as open as I would hope, and the committee itself is the committee is full of 25 folks. You had mentioned many have actually worked on bigger projects throughout the city that have also caused gentrification, which is extremely problematic. And their views are not focused on the community. So I will be honest, it is a big take on. President Javier and myself were working with faculty and staff because we know even as students and with our power, which is big, we need to work together with other folks. So navigating the BPDA is going to be very interesting. We need students to speak to them because the more that they hear, at least they'll hopefully acknowledge us. But definitely would love, don't want to take up too much time, but definitely would love to have a conversation with that, and any ideas you might have of talking to the BPDA or anything that you might think about organizing.
Thank you, Vice President Pereira. Senator Madhavaya?
Thank you. That was actually the perfect way to pronounce my last name, so thank you for that, by the way. But I'm not going to spend too much time because as well, for this project, I haven't really done as much research, but there is one thing that I would like to point out, and that's that there's a lot of construction and work being done on the campus itself, and the university itself. I've seen plans of the quad being completely transformed, and so I'm just wondering if for UMass Boston students, if both changes to the university and seeing these changes to the surrounding area, if that is something that students can not withstand, but students can see if it is worthwhile, because I believe another senator mentioned the internship opportunities that are possible with it, and everything that everyone who spoke mentioned are absolutely amazing points. But seeing both the construction on the university itself, just in conjunction with this project and the potential for this project, I'm just wondering if that can also be another barrier, because with the construction on the campus, it could increase the difficulty for various students on top of anything that this project can also bring. So I just also kind of wanted to point that out as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Montemaya. And Chair Bates, you're going to be our last comment for the day before we move on to a short open forum.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that this is an issue that comes up at Faculty Council now and again, and there are definitely some, I don't mean this in like a bad way, but there's definitely some opinionated faculty on this issue. So if we do end up taking a stance on this, it would be good to maybe bring it up with them. It could be kind of a joint effort because I think there's a lot of overlap between the opinions of some of the faculty and the opinions of some of the students here. So just thought I'd mention that.
Thank you, Chair Bates. I'm going to move on to open forum quickly here, and I just want to emphasize, well done today. I was really happy with the engagement that I saw from senators. I know some of you left, that's okay. Again, I want to emphasize the student town hall is tomorrow, October 15th at 4 p.m. I will send out the information later tonight to everybody. I would make me really happy if a lot of senators showed up. I have a class during that time, so I cannot come, but I would love if senators could show up during that time. Well done today. Again, I want to emphasize that we are a team, and it's best that we work together and everything. And also, senators, the work you do does not go unnoticed. Just know that, and I'm very well done, and I'm going to call on Officer Zabel.
Hi guys. President Javier mentioned this earlier, but myself and Alex Killian are both representatives for an organization called BIG, which is Boston Intercollegiate Government, and we have something pretty exciting to share with you. Next week on October 21st at 8 p.m., Senator Ed Markey has offered us some of his time to have a Zoom meeting with a bunch of college students to just stress the importance of young people voting and youth engagement in elections. It's completely free. It's open to everybody. We don't have a link yet. We're doing some more planning for it tonight. So in a few days, hopefully I can send something to Speaker Khan, or Alex can send something to her that has information about how you can access this Zoom call. I just thought it would be a super awesome experience, and I would love if everyone could come.
Thank you, Officer Zabel. Chair Velasquez, sorry, Chair Velasquez, my voice went out.
That's okay. I just wanted to remind you guys to please send me your pictures, your photos, and your bio by Friday. Hopefully sometime soon so I can start working on those early. But yeah, don't forget to do that. Thank you.
Yeah, I will send a reminder about that too. If I no other hands I see, I am going to adjourn this meeting at 4:11. Again, well done, everybody. Remember to going forward to keep discussion polite and kind, you know. But well done. See you guys in 2 weeks. Oh, also, new senators were on today. Welcome. I'm sorry I didn't say that. Your first committee meeting is next week. You guys are already assigned to committees and the chairs know of you guys. So the chairs will be reaching out to you with committee meetings next week because again, GAs are every other week. So I'm sorry I didn't mention that, but yes, welcome and goodbye.